2 minutes after 11 on December 10th. We are recording it as a public meeting. Stephanie, would you like to walk through a roll call, please?
Yeah, of course. Senator Malcolm Augustine.
Present.
Thank you. Delegate Lily Chi.
Yes.
Andrew Place.
Present.
Ryan Powell.
Here.
Andrew Griffin.
Here.
Thank you. Ivy Baker.
Present.
Nancy Sopko. Charles Washington. Sarah Battisti. And Russell Lacey. Okay, I think that concludes that, and I do believe we have a quorum, Andrew.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Thanks for confirming, Jared. All right. The substantive piece on our agenda is a selection of a new chair. I served sort of interim to get this thing launched, to get this working group launched over the past year, but I will not be staying on as chair, and I'll be staying on the committee, on the working group, but not as chair. With that said, I wanted to put it forward to the working group to select a new chair. It's not required that we do this vote today. There may not be anyone interested in taking this on, but I wanted to put that out there and put it before you all as the working group. So that said, the floor is open if there's any discussion or anybody wants to opine. I will note that I also did the same for the other working group that I chaired this morning, and there were no responses. It's not obligatory. So.
Would it be helpful for folks for you to describe what the responsibilities and expectations of the chair are?
I can certainly do that. I probably wouldn't argue that it's as intensive or as full of obligations as it has been in the past year to get this process established. But I see the chair is doing, first and foremost, facilitating the working group meetings, and ensuring that the work is accomplished throughout the year. And I would, we don't have, the statute doesn't say there needs to be a chair. The statute's silent on a chair. I certainly see it as the working group's prerogative if they choose not to have a chair, or select a chair for a calendar year, etc. That it's a complete blank slate. Since we have that our study that we were obliged, statutorily obliged to produce, we have accomplished that. So we do not have, other than continuing to be a working group, any work that we would take on. We've talked about a white paper. And the statute does provide for the findings of this working group to be reported to the legislature and the governor, and the Climate Commission, which I see is that's us to take the pen if we choose or not. We did provide recommendations this year to the Climate Commission that are still being considered for the annual report. The final voting session of the Climate Commission is the 19th, next week, and
sorry,
so
Andrew, if I might interject, it's the 12th.
Please.
The 19th is the steering committee meeting.
I'm sorry. I completely missed that on my calendar. So we are, all right, the voting session is the 12th. Jared?
Yes, that's correct. It's on the 12th, from 1 officially to 3 p.m. with a hold if we need it from 3 to 4.
All right. Yeah, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I saw your note the other day dropping the hold for that meeting, and I saw the 19th and misread that that was the steering committee. So, yeah, great catch. Much appreciated. Yes. So, be that as it may, then the 12th is the last voting session for the Climate Commission to put recommendations into their annual report. We can clearly put recommendations forward into next year. We have that pen, we have the prerogative to do or to not. But those are the work ahead of us. Senator Augustine?
Thank you. Just on this conversation around the position of a chair. So, Andrew, you're saying that you are not going to help me understand that, because let me just say, as a member of this, I look to MDE for leadership, I will just say. And you are the MDE secretary's designee. So I just want to just put that kind of out there. So help me understand how that works.
Yeah, two things on that. I've always been careful that MDE is not guiding this working group. This working group, the voice is solely the members of this working group as set out in statute. That said, yes, the secretary and a designee, and I'm the secretary's designee on this working group, has a presence, but that's all. It's one vote, one member of the sitting working group. It has been asked by the secretary that MDE staff not chair any of these working groups.
Okay. And so then my follow-up to that would ask, because I'm on the website and it says that the two other sort of like MDE representatives, it says that those are vacant from the industry, like who would be SMEs and stuff like that. Is that the case?
Yeah, I believe that's the case. Jared, is that accurate?
Yeah, so there are two vacancies under the secretary's two people to appoint, so that they have yet to submit those. I believe that they have people that they're looking at, but they have not been officially added to the group.
Okay, so I guess what I would just say in response to that is I would probably think that for me, I would say tabling this conversation and seeing, what the composition of the committee for its coming work will be, if some of these folks and people are going to become known to us. So that's just my thought.
Andrew Griffin, or I'm not sure who raised their hand first, but Delegate Shi, you might have been first. Mm-hmm.
Andrew first, please.
Oh, sorry.
No, not a problem. Thanks, Delegate. A similar question to Senator Augustine's. I guess, is there an immediate requirement? Andrew Griffin, the Maryland Chamber, obviously just covering as the Chamber is working on a new appointment. If in the future, whomever that individual let's say, were to become interested in becoming chair, is there any kind of a preclusion from us having this conversation, to Senator Augustine's point, down the road?
No. If it's the will of the working group for me to continue in this role indefinitely, there's no hesitancy to do that, and no time constraint to take this on.
Yep. No, I appreciate that.
Delegate Shi?
Thanks. I just have a clarifying question. You mentioned very briefly about the future life of this working group. So at some point, I don't know when, I got the impression that once we present the report, we basically would sunset, right? And so if that's not the case, then what's the expected life of this working group? And how do we know when we are done with our work beyond presentation of the report? Are we going to continue functioning to make sure whatever we recommend is going to be implemented and so forth? So I need to better understand the purpose of this working group beyond this report, and what kind of leader we need to facilitate this and drive the conversations.
Yes, and there is no sunset for this working group. My read of the statute is that it goes on in perpetuity. I thought if I read the intent of the legislature, I thought they very much wanted a working group focused, made up of experts in these fields, these concerns about energy industry revitalization. And I would argue that there's a lot of work we have yet to do. I don't think we could look at the American economy and say that we've achieved an equitable transition in this realm.
I
that's my
agree.
personal opinion.
Yeah, well, I agree with what you just said, and I think everyone clearly can see the importance of what this working group is set up to do, right? Even though we're at very early stage of that. In that case, I would have rather see someone from the industry taking over as a potential leader who knows what they are doing and their pain of having to go through the transition and make the economy work and all of that. I think that's better. So it gives us some arm's length objectivity as legislators in listening to people's conversations. I defer to my great colleague, Senator Augustine, on that, unless he wants to be the chair, because I certainly don't.
Thank you, Delegate Chief. Yeah, I'd contemplate it, just idly contemplating this conversation. I wondered if the chair should or should not be a representative from industry. But I also wondered if a delegate or senator would be the appropriate chair. But I'm happy. Yeah, it's all wise thoughts. Thank you, Delegate Chief. Other considerations? All right. Then, yeah, as suggested, let's table this conversation. I will continue. If it's the will of this working group, I'll continue to serve in this role in the interim. Is that
Yes.
is acceptable to the working group? Okay.
I'm sorry to interject again, but on that note about the vacancy that the senator raised, maybe vacancies from SMEs, are we going to be sort of in a hurry to fill those roles? Maybe those are the people we need to actually drive the conversations to see what the situation is on the ground.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I will take that on as to push that hard in these weeks ahead to get those closed out. Yeah, I think that's fundamental. All right. Well, considered it tabled, and we know our way forward here. Other business that the working group members would like to bring before us today?
I guess my general question then is, if this working group continues, then what is the focus of the working group? And what are kind of the outputs?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would.
I'm going to go back to the statute. I mean, there still are the I mean, that's what drives the work, and that work is not over. Just reiterating kind of like what Andrew said, we just go back to the statute and where we are to provide recommendations and still sort of be able to do that, I would suggest there's still work to be done. This is an ongoing sort of matter for sure. Yeah, that's my take.
And my thoughts on that was in line with thinking about a new chair, whether that the agenda or our processes moving forward that chair should be able to set that with the advice of this working group. I didn't want to. Yeah. I thought if we were to select a chair in say February, and we'd already set our goals, that would box that chair in, and that may not be wise. Again, I just reiterate, this is what keeps me up at night, is I think the legislature intended this working group to have a strong voice, and for that voice to be heard. All right. Anything further? Hearing none. If there members of the public on the call, we always set aside time for public comment. If there's anybody,
Sorry, Andrew, before we go to that, is it in the statute that the secretary determines who the chair is?
no, and I think that would be inappropriate if they did.
Okay.
I'm very protective of the voice of this working group.
Okay. All right, because I'm looking at, unless this, maybe I'm looking in the wrong part of the statute, and maybe I am. I don't know. Where maybe this is not applying to or pertaining to this. Because I was like looking at what our charge is, and you got the report obviously, and then you have the the ongoing responsibility to advise on the commission on issues related to small business revitalization, transition to renewable energies, whatever. And maybe this is not it, but above that, it just says the secretary shall designate the chair of the working group. Maybe
I did. I didn't see that. I may be off base. I didn't see that.
Section 2-1303.2. Maybe I'm in the wrong spot. Let's just check on it for sure. That might be a different working group.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's what it is. So let's just check on it.
Yeah. I will. I'll be profoundly apologetic if I've missed that. I thought I was reading the four corners of the statute that created this working group.
Other than that, I don't have anything else. Sorry.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, I will pull up the statute and confirm and respond back to you all. All right. Jared apparently is reading it as we're speaking to.
That does appear to be the statute. I can put it in the chat real quick.
And that is specifically attributable to this working group.
Yeah, I'll share my screen. That's probably a better way to do this. So here we are under the Energy Industry Revitalization Working Group section. And here D says the secretary shall designate the chair of the working group.
All right. And can you slide up? I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. No, I'll reshare. Yep. You tell me. That's the start of this section. So this lays out all of the appointees, and the section below talks about the chair.
All right. Well, all right. That clearly I was absolutely fundamentally wrong. I'll have that conversation with the secretary. Presents an interesting problem that someone's going to get dragooned. But all right, it's nothing. We don't hold that. We don't hold those cards. All right, so we know where we're going then. I will have the ask the secretary to designate. Although in line with this conversation, should we hold that until we have those 2 seats filled?
I would think so. And the other thing that I would say, in keeping with what Delegate Chi said, we also as a group can, informally have a communication to the secretary if this group, who this group thinks, or the profile of what would be an appropriate chair. We could surely share that with the secretary. Yeah, we could surely do that. But it is her call to determine who the chair of this group is.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, and my apologies for not being aware of that. And I always was protective that this working group had its own voice. But I think that is wise. Let's fill these 2 seats. Have an internal conversation about who might be fill it, or who we'd recommend, and I will communicate to the secretary that that's what our intent is. Okay. All right. Yeah, and again, my apologies for that. I was always incredibly protective of the installation of this working group. Further business, further comments? Seeing none, I would open the floor. If there's members of the public that want to make a comment, please raise your hand and I will recognize you. All right, seeing none, our next working group meeting is February 4th at 11 a.m. 2025. And with that in mind, I wish you all well. And if there's no further business, I will adjourn this public meeting of the Energy Industry Revitalization Working Group. It's always good to see all of you.